My mom slammed her palm against the table so hard the utensils jumped. "How can you be this heartless?" she shouted, her voice slicing through the silence like a blade. The room fell still. Every pair of eyes turned to me, my aunts, my cousins, even my brother, who sat with his head down, playing the victim like he always did. I just stood there, gripping the edge of my chair, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear myself think. She wasn't asking. She was demanding. Demanding I sell my house, the one thing I owned, the one safe space I had built after years of crawling out of a toxic marriage, so I could bail out my brother from the mountain of debt he had racked up. Again. "Your brother's life is falling apart," she spat, her eyes narrowed. "And you're sitting in that precious house of yours like a queen." A queen? No. I was barely holding it together. That house was the result of every overtime hour, every skipped vacation, every tear I cried alone after my divorce. It wasn't just a house, it was my proof that I could survive. That I didn't need anyone's help. Especially not theirs. I looked around. No one came to my defense. Not one person said, "She has a right to her home." Instead, they looked at me like I had just kicked a dog. Like I was selfish. Ungrateful. Cold. "Don't you remember who helped you when you were a kid?" my uncle muttered. "We all made sacrifices for you. It's your turn." I wanted to scream. No one remembered how my brother had stolen money from me before. Or how he gambled away our parents' savings. Or how every time I had a moment of peace, he showed up with another mess. But this time, it wasn't just about cleaning up after him. This time, they wanted to take the only thing I had left. "Hi. I'm not sure how your family works, but in mine, saying, 'no,' is considered betrayal. Saying, 'This house is mine,' apparently means I'm cold-blooded. Have you ever been called selfish for simply choosing to keep what's yours? Would you sell your home to pay off someone else's mistakes? If you've ever been in a situation like this, or fear one's coming, stick around. Subscribe. Because sometimes, saying no doesn't just show you who people are. It shows you who they've always been. They didn't just want my help. They expected my sacrifice. Growing up, my mom always made it clear that my brother came first. "He's sensitive," she would say when he lashed out. "He needs more help," she'd repeat whenever he failed another class, got fired from another job, or drained another bank account. I was the responsible one. The independent one. That meant I was supposed to handle things on my own, and it also meant I never got to ask for help. I became invisible by being competent. I used to think that was a compliment, being called strong. But what it really meant was that my pain didn't count, that my needs came second, or third, or maybe not at all. And somehow, that dynamic never changed. Even as adults, my brother's disasters were group emergencies. Mine? Personal failures. After my divorce, I started over with almost nothing. I had left a house I helped pay for, left furniture I picked, memories I had tried to protect. I walked away with 2 suitcases, a ruined credit score, and a heart that refused to hope for anything anymore. I didn't ask my family for anything, not sympathy, not support, not a dime. I worked 3 jobs and moved into a small studio apartment where I could barely fit a couch. I ate frozen meals for months. I slept on an air mattress the first 6 months. But I made it. By the time I turned 32, I bought my own house, a small, 2-bedroom fixer-upper, but mine. I painted every wall, replaced every tile, planted sunflowers in the yard just because I could. For the first time, I had space that didn't belong to anyone else. It was sacred. And of course, that's when the phone calls started. It was subtle at first. "Have you heard about your brother?" my mom asked one afternoon. "He's just been struggling. The economy's hard on everyone." I nodded politely, said, "Yeah, it's rough," and tried to change the subject. But she wouldn't let it go. "He's fallen behind on some payments," she added. "It's really bad this time. Creditors, threats, that sort of thing. I don't know what to do." I stayed quiet. A few days later it became, "You know, you're in such a good place now. Maybe you can help." Then a week after that, "I was thinking, maybe you could co-sign a loan. Or if not that, maybe sell the house? Just temporarily? He just needs a fresh start." Sell the house. Those 3 words made my skin crawl. I told her no. Gently at first. Then firmly. Then silently. But no was never enough for my mom. When she wants something, she doesn't hear your words, she hears your resistance. She considers it a challenge. That's when she invited me to dinner. A family catch-up, she said. I knew something was off when I walked into the living room and saw not just her, but half the extended family already seated like a tribunal. My brother was there too, sitting small and pathetic, like a child waiting to be punished. He had that wounded look in his eyes he always wore when things fell apart, and he wanted someone else to clean it up. They talked around me for a while. Polite conversation, fake smiles. But soon, the conversation shifted. My mom cleared her throat and said, "There's something we need to talk about as a family." I braced myself. She started with a plea. "Your brother is in real trouble. This isn't just some random debt, it's serious. He owes nearly $80,000. If we don't help him, he could lose everything. And his credit is ruined. No one will loan him a dime. But you have a house." It was quiet. Then my aunt chimed in. "We all know you're doing great, sweetheart. You're thriving. You're the only one who can help right now." Then my uncle added, "It's just a house. You can always get another. He can't get another chance." I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like I had walked into an ambush without armor. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, "but I'm not selling my home. I worked too hard for it. I can't give it up." That's when my mom lost it. She slammed her hand on the table and screamed, "I didn't raise you to be this selfish." It echoed through the room. I could feel heat rising to my face, the sting of humiliation burning in my throat. I wanted to leave. I wanted to scream back. But I sat there, frozen, while my relatives looked at me like I had just betrayed them all. "She's always been cold," one cousin whispered. "She thinks she's better than us now," said another. I wasn't even angry. I was shattered. These were people who had once celebrated my birthday, held my hand when I was a child. Now, they acted like I was a stranger. A villain. Because I wanted to keep what I earned. I walked out without saying another word. No one stopped me. Days passed. No calls. No messages. My mom stopped responding to texts. My brother blocked me on social media. Word must have spread fast because even distant relatives unfollowed me online, and a few sent me guilt-tripping DMs. I had become the family disgrace for protecting myself. But what no one saw, what no one cared to know, was that this wasn't the first time he had destroyed something. My brother had borrowed from me years ago. "Just 1,000, he'd said. "I'll pay you back next month." That 1,000 turned into 5. Then he ghosted me for 8 months. I never saw the money again. Never got an apology. Another time, he pawned my grandmother's jewelry that Mom had given both of us to share. Claimed he lost it, until a friend of his admitted they'd seen him at a pawn shop. When I confronted him, he laughed. Said I was overreacting. That it was just stuff. "And Mom?" She brushed it off. "He's struggling," she'd said. "He needs understanding." I needed understanding too. But no one ever gave it to me. So this time, I drew a line. I wouldn't sacrifice my life to patch up his. I thought they'd get over it. That after some time, someone, anyone, would reach out and try to see my side. But it never came. Instead, things escalated. A week later, I got an email from a legal firm, on behalf of my brother. It claimed that he had been promised a portion of the house that my mother had contributed financially, and that I was unfairly withholding family assets. It was laughable. I had receipts, bank transfers, closing costs in my name, mortgage payments, home improvement invoices. No one had given me a cent. But suddenly, I was the one being painted as the liar. I could have caved. I could have tried to talk it out. But something inside me broke. Something that had been eroding for years finally snapped. I wasn't going to be the quiet one anymore. I hired an attorney. And that was the beginning of a very different story. I used to think staying silent was strength. That biting your tongue meant maturity. But silence is a currency. And in my family, every time I stayed quiet, they spent me a little more. By the time I received that letter from the lawyer, claiming that my house wasn't fully mine, I realized silence had made me easy to rewrite. So I decided to start speaking in a language they couldn't ignore, legal. I called the firm that sent the email and requested all documentation they were planning to use. Their paralegal sounded surprised, maybe even a little smug. "We'll send over the family contributions records," she said, like it was a done deal. I waited. When the email came through, I opened the PDF and braced myself. It was laughable. One screenshot showed a $300 transfer from my mom's bank account, dated 3 years before I even bought the house. Another was a blurry Venmo receipt labeled, "For groceries." That was it. That was their entire case. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just sat there, feeling this cold wave wash over me. The same kind I used to feel after my ex gaslit me into believing I was overreacting, or when my mom would remind me how much she sacrificed for me. This time, I didn't internalize it. I got to work. First, I printed every financial record tied to my house: bank statements, pay stubs, closing documents, down payment transfers. I highlighted every single line with my name on it. Then I went further: home insurance payments, furniture receipts, even invoices from the contractor who remodeled the kitchen. I brought it all to my lawyer. "I don't just want to defend myself," I told her. "I want this shut down completely." She nodded. "We can't stop them from making claims, but we can make sure any judge sees the truth." I asked her what I could do to protect myself even more. That's when she introduced me to something I'd never heard of before: asset shielding. "You can file a declaration of separate property," she explained. "And if we make it retroactive, we can prove the house was always yours, long before this nonsense started." I signed every form she gave me. And then I did more. I changed the title of the house to reflect sole ownership and registered it under a trust in my name. I locked down my credit. Froze every joint account still tied to my family. There weren't many, but I didn't want to leave even a crack open. I even checked my tax returns to make sure no one had ever falsely claimed interest payments. Every brick of that house became a fortress. My fortress. While all of that was happening, I started digging into my brother's finances. Not out of curiosity, out of necessity. I needed to know how deep the rabbit hole went. What I found shocked even me. Through a friend who worked in collections, I learned he wasn't just in debt, he was being sued by multiple lenders. He had taken out payday loans, defaulted on credit cards, and even co-signed a car loan that had been repossessed. But here's the kicker: he had also taken out a $50,000 personal loan and listed our mother as a co-signer. She hadn't told me. No wonder she was so desperate for me to step in. If he defaulted, the debt collectors would come for her house, her savings, everything. I printed the public court filings. I highlighted the names. Then I made one final move. I drafted a cease and desist letter. My lawyer helped me phrase it precisely. It stated that any further claims to my property would be considered harassment, and pursued accordingly. It included a full exhibit of my payment history and ownership documentation. And I made sure both my mom and brother received a copy, through email, certified mail, and hand delivery. 3 days later, the silence was deafening. No one called. No one emailed. My mom didn't even attempt her usual guilt texts. I thought that was the end of it. Until the invitation came. It was a group message, sent to the family thread I hadn't seen activity in for weeks. My cousin was getting married. Everyone was invited. Including me. For a second, I hesitated. Then curiosity got the better of me. I RSVP'd yes. I wore a black satin jumpsuit, elegant but firm. The kind of outfit that says, "I'm not here to be messed with." I walked into that reception and felt every head turn. I knew what they saw. Not the villain. Not the cold daughter. But someone they couldn't touch anymore. My mother approached me near the bar. She looked thinner, drained. Stress will do that to you when you carry someone else's debt on your back. She didn't say hello. Just, "Did you really have to be that cruel?" I took a sip of champagne. Was protecting what's mine cruel? Or was asking me to give it up the real cruelty? Her eyes watered. "You've changed." I leaned in slightly. "No. I just stopped pretending your version of love was fair." And then I walked away. The following week, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a debt collector. They were looking for my brother. They'd been told he lived at my address. I corrected them immediately, and forwarded the interaction to my lawyer. They never called again. The best part? I started sleeping again. For the first time in months, I could close my eyes and not feel the weight of expectations crushing my chest. I watered the garden without glancing over my shoulder. I cooked in my kitchen and danced in the hallway. That little house wasn't just mine, it was my peace. My boundary made real. But there's more. One of my younger cousins, someone who had been mostly quiet during the family drama, reached out privately. She said, "I just want you to know I admire you. I've been scared to stand up to our family too. But you did it. And it helped me believe I could too." That meant more than she could know. Because in the end, it wasn't just about a house. It was about reclaiming my place in my own story. About refusing to be rewritten by people who only cared when I could be useful. They wanted me to fold. I built a wall. They wanted me to sacrifice. I drew the line. And they thought they could sue me into submission. Instead, I gave them paperwork and silence. The kind that doesn't mean surrender. The kind that means I'm done. It was almost poetic, the way everything unraveled, not for me, but for them. The silence I'd been met with after sending that cease and desist letter never really ended. It just deepened. What began as passive aggression became absence. And absence became distance. And that distance became freedom. My brother stopped trying to contact me completely. My mother, once the relentless voice of guilt and shame, went radio silent. No more texts about family. No more calls asking for just a little help. No more surprise visits. For the first time in my adult life, I was no longer expected to fix things I hadn't broken. But that wasn't the end of their problems. The debts they tried to cover up had matured into something much worse. My brother's creditors filed another round of lawsuits, and without anyone else to lean on, without anyone left to manipulate, he defaulted. Hard. One day, I came home from work and saw a man in a navy blazer taping something to the front door of my mother's house. I parked across the street and watched quietly. A bank repossession notice. Her house was officially under foreclosure. I should have felt something, sadness, anger, maybe a twinge of sympathy. But all I felt was stillness. Like watching the final act of a play I'd already read 1,000 times. I knew how it would end. I just didn't think I'd get to watch it unfold from a place of peace. They lost everything. Within 2 months, my mother moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. My brother was rumored to be crashing on someone's couch, another friend, or maybe someone he was stringing along. It didn't matter. He'd burned every bridge he touched, including the one that led back to me. At work I thrived. Maybe it was the mental clarity. Maybe it was that I no longer lived under the weight of family politics. I earned a promotion, got asked to lead a new project, and was even invited to speak at a women's leadership conference. I talked about boundaries. About not being guilt out of your own power. The crowd applauded, but it was one woman in the back, tears in her eyes, who walked up after and whispered, "You just told my story." That moment stayed with me. The house, my house, became more than just walls. It became a sanctuary. I renovated the guest room into a cozy reading nook, added skylights to bring in more sun, and installed a new front gate. I even adopted a senior dog from the shelter, named her Luna. She followed me around like a shadow, gentle and wise, as if she sensed this home had been fought for. Sometimes I'd sit out on the porch in the evening, wine glass in hand, Luna asleep at my feet, and wonder what might have happened if I had said yes. If I had sold the house. Given the money. Given myself away. Again. I would have been homeless. My credit would have tanked. And the cycle would have just repeated. They would have needed more. And more. Until there was nothing left of me to take. But I didn't give in. And that changed everything. Not everyone was happy about it. My aunt tried to call once, left a voicemail that said, "It's not too late to be part of the family again." As if family were a club you paid dues to and got expelled from for setting boundaries. I never called back. My cousin who had messaged me after the wedding? She came over one afternoon, brought cookies and sat with me in the kitchen. She told me she was proud of me. That she'd recently said no to something unfair in her own family and was met with similar backlash. "They act like you've broken a sacred law," she said. "But it's just self-respect." We clinked our glasses to that. Months passed. Then a year. One morning I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from my mother. The handwriting was shaky. The lines uneven. Inside she wrote, "I've lost a lot. And I know you think I deserve it. Maybe I do. But I want you to know. I wasn't trying to destroy you. I was just scared. Scared of watching your brother fall apart. Scared of losing control. You were always the strong one. I leaned on you because I thought you could handle it. I never realized how unfair that was. I see it now. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to hear it from me. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I didn't cry. But I didn't respond either. Because healing didn't mean I owed her closure. I had already built my own. One afternoon, as I walked through the garden, I passed the small stone I had placed there months earlier, etched with a single word. Mine! It was a reminder. Of everything I had given. And everything I had taken back. They thought they could guilt me into surrender. They thought I was too soft to draw a line. But what they didn't understand was this. The house they tried to take from me wasn't just my home. It was the symbol of my independence. It was my history rewritten, not in their words, but mine. And in the quiet, in the light streaming through my windows, in the sound of Luna snoring on the floor beside me, I finally understood. This wasn't revenge. This was freedom. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that being strong doesn't mean being silent. I used to believe that if I just endured enough, gave enough, proved myself enough, eventually people would understand. That they would see my sacrifices and meet me halfway. But they didn't. And not because they couldn't, but because I had taught them that my boundaries were flexible, my needs negotiable, and my life always available for fixing theirs. It took nearly losing the one thing I had built for myself to realize that the pattern wouldn't break until I did. We're taught that family is everything. That blood is thicker than water. That loyalty means putting others first, especially the people who raised you, stood by you, or shared your childhood. But loyalty without reciprocity isn't love. It's servitude. And self-sacrifice is only noble when it's a choice, not a weapon used against you. My family didn't ask for help. They demanded it. And when I said no, they didn't reflect or reconsider. They punished. They isolated. They framed my decision to protect myself as an act of betrayal. But the truth is, I wasn't betraying them. I was choosing myself for the first time. And that's not something to feel guilty about. Saying no isn't cold. It's honest. It's brave. Especially when your entire life has taught you that your worth is measured by how much pain you can carry for others. The people who love you for who you are won't leave when you draw a line. The people who stay only when they're getting what they want were never really with you, they were just with your usefulness. I also learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. They don't keep love out, they keep exploitation out. Real love doesn't fear a locked door. It knocks, it respects, it waits. There's also something deeply transformative about reclaiming your own narrative. My family tried to paint me as heartless, selfish, cold. But those labels only worked for as long as I let their version of the story be the only one told. The moment I started speaking for myself, legally, emotionally, practically, the truth made their accusations fall apart. It was never about money. It was about control. About expectation. About who gets to dictate who plays the role of the savior, and who gets to stay the victim. I don't regret drawing the line. I only regret how long it took me to realize I could. If you're reading this and you've been made to feel like you owe your peace to keep others comfortable, please know this, you don't. You don't owe anyone your home. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself that exists only to serve their convenience. What you do owe is to yourself, to protect your energy, your sanity, your space. Especially when you worked for it. Especially when no one else helped you build it. It's okay to say, I can't give anymore. It's okay to say, that's not my responsibility. It's okay to say, I love you, but not at the expense of myself. And if they don't understand that, then maybe, just maybe, they never really understood love to begin with. Because love doesn't demand you to burn your life down just to keep someone else warm. I didn't sell my house. I didn't give in. I stood up. And because of that, I gained something far more valuable than approval. I gained myself.